Hey friends, what's going on? In today's video, I'm going to be doing a quick crash course in how I would approach building an online marketplace in 2024 using no-code tools. Now, if you are new here, my name's Connor. I run a website called The Unicorn Factory, which is New Zealand's largest freelancer marketplace, and I created the entire thing using no-code tools. Now, on this YouTube channel, I talk about how you can build your own marketplace businesses, job boards, without needing to know how to code. And one of the most common questions that I get about building marketplaces is, what no-code tools should I use in order to get started? And so in today's video, I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes of the Unicorn Factory, and I will show you what tools I would use, what projects I would work on first, to show you how these sites go from being an idea to a scalable marketplace. Okay, so we've got a lot to cover, but I did want to quickly say that the tools that I've chosen today are not just tools that I use myself to run the Unicorn Factory, they're also tools that I've selected because they are the perfect intersection between being easy enough to learn for a beginner, but also being flexible enough to build a custom marketplace business. Now, the first tool that I want to talk about is Webflow. So, the first thing that we want to go over is the first thing that I'd work on if I was starting from scratch. Now, one of the big mistakes that I see people making when working on their marketplaces is that they try to do too much too soon. And oftentimes it's just not feasible because you just haven't gone through the process of building out a site. So if you want to start at zero and start making progress on your marketplace immediately, what I would recommend doing is building out a one-page landing page for your marketplace using Webflow. Now, Webflow is the tool that I use for all of my front end of my marketing site. And so as you're just getting started, what you want to do is create a one pager that basically outlines what your marketplace is about. So in this particular case, I say, we help Canadian businesses find and hire top freelance talent. And then you can add some sections that kind of describe the benefits of hiring freelancers, the challenges of hiring freelancers, and how you and your platform will make whatever it is that you're doing even better. I also have a section to describe how it all works, and then I also have a frequently asked questions section and some additional information that I think would be useful to a potential buyer. Now, the only other thing that I would add to this one-page landing page is a contact form that a potential buyer can fill out if they are interested in what you're offering. Now, oftentimes people think that they can't actually get their marketplace out until it's all built, but some of the best marketplaces that I've seen have created something along these lines where they just create a contact form, and whenever someone would fill it out, they would just reach out to them and that'd help them facilitate whatever they were after manually. Now, the fastest way to build your landing page in Webflow is to use an extension called the Reloom component library. Now, the Reloom component library is a tool that you can use to import components into your Webflow site. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth into it, but I just want to show you how it works so that you get an idea of how fast you can get these sites up and running. So with this Chrome extension, I can basically go ahead, copy a layout, and then simply paste it into my project like this. And as soon as it appears inside of my Webflow project, I can start making changes to it. So I can go in here, I can change my logo. And so what you'll have to do is you'll have to upload a logo. And then it's just a matter of making small little adjustments to it, changing the copy, adding images. And before you know it, you have created your one-page website. Now, if there's certain sections that you don't want, you can simply remove it. If there's certain elements inside of a section that you don't want, you can simply remove those as well. And ultimately, this is the fastest way to get your landing page up and running. As soon as you have this landing page, the only other page to set up is your contact page. And again, Reloom is going to have a lot of components that you can use in order to quickly set up this page. And as soon as your page is up and running, all that is left to do is to buy a domain, hit the publish button, and you are now ready to start promoting it to potential customers. Now, ideally, what you want to do at this stage is you want to see whether or not you can attract potential buyers to your platform, because if you can't, then it's likely also going to be very hard to attract people after your site is built, which is why I recommend doing something along these lines first, so that you know it's worth the time and effort that it will take in order to take things to the next level. Now, the next thing that you might want to consider is building out a database, because if a customer fills out your contact form and they are looking for a particular type of freelancer, then you'll be able to help them immediately. Now, the tool that I use in order to create a database like this is called Airtable. Okay, so Airtable is the database tool that I use, which essentially acts as my central source of truth. So because I'm using so many different tools, I'm gonna need to have one particular platform that holds all of the original content. And the tool that I use for that is Airtable. Now, there are a lot of reasons why Airtable is awesome. The main reason is it's nice and visual. It kind of has the simplicity of, say, a spreadsheet, but with the functionality of a fully built out database. And so when you're just getting started, you can keep things super simple. All you really need is a table for your clients where you can send form submissions to. So what I mean by that is when you attract people to your landing page and they start filling out the contact information, that information gets sent to your clients table. And then you might also want to create a table for all of the different talent that you're going to be listing on your marketplace. The reason why you want to start with this sooner rather than later is, one, because you'll know whether or not you can actually find talent, and two, if someone fills out your contact form, you'll be able to connect them to freelancers before your entire platform is actually built out. And so the way that you build a database tool is you first of all start off by creating a table. So you just click on start from scratch and then you just give it a name. So we'll call it client. So I've already created that here. But then all you need to do is to just add custom fields for each field that you want to save information on. So if we go and have a look at our form, we need a field for our first name, last name, email, phone number, company, how you heard about us, the budget for the project, and who you need to hire, as well as a text field where they can describe their project. And so for every single one of these fields in our contact form, we just want to go ahead and create a separate field inside of our client table, just like that. And so once you've created all of that, you will be able to save all of your form submissions directly inside of Airtable. But now the question becomes, okay, well, how do I get that information from Webflow into Airtable though? And that brings us to our next tool, which is called Make.com. So Make.com is an automation tool that allows you to take manual processes and automate them. So in this particular case, instead of having to manually copy over our form submissions from Webflow into our Airtable database, we can actually set up an automated workflow that sends the information from Webflow to Airtable as soon as the form is submitted. Now, the way that automation tools work is actually pretty simple. You have a trigger that starts the workflow, and then you have individual actions that you want the automation tool to take as soon as that event is triggered. So in this particular case, the trigger that we're going to be working with is when a form is submitted. So it basically monitors all of our Webflow forms, and as soon as our form is submitted, it triggers the workflow and sends all of the information that was submitted in the form to our Webflow step. As soon as we have that information, we can then start mapping up the fields that were submitted in the Webflow form to the fields that we have created inside of Airtable. So if we want to map our first name field to the first name field inside of Airtable, we can just map the data up like that. Same for last name and whatever other fields you need. That means that whenever someone submits a form, we will automatically see them appear in here. Now, another thing that you can do to, kind of expand on this particular workflow is if you have an email marketing tool like I have with MailerLite, you can actually add them to a mailing list. So essentially all you need to do is, again, take the information that you get from the Webflow form, map them to a particular group inside of MailerLite, and then map up the different fields that you can retrieve from your Webflow form. This is an essential way to start scaling up the amount of information and tasks and workflows that you can process at any given time. Now, learning how to build a landing page in Webflow, learning how to build a simple database, and setting up basic workflows that I just showed you is all you really need to do in order to get the ball rolling. You really don't want to proceed to the next step until you start consistently generating form submissions from potential buyers. If you cannot attract people to your site, then it makes no sense to invest all of the time and money that it will take to build the first version of your platform. But assuming that you do get submissions consistently, the next step in this whole process is to start building out your MVP. Now, there are a few things that you can do, and it is very use case specific, but the first thing that I like to do is to start creating category specific landing pages. So as you're just getting started, you'll just have a generic homepage that describes what your marketplace does. But if you want to improve the amount of conversions that you get for your site, one thing that is incredibly powerful is to create more specific landing pages catered towards what a potential buyer is looking for. So in this particular example, I have created a category page for potential businesses that are looking for designers. So as you can see, instead of it being generic text about, hiring freelancers in general, all of the content is built around hiring designers. So the text is designers, and the different freelancers that are displayed are designers. The case studies are designers. The frequently asked questions section and the how it works sections is all based around hiring designers. And one of the main benefits that you get from doing this is that as Google starts to browse through your site, they'll actually see that you have those specific pages, and they will then start ranking you for those specific terms. And if you can programmatically create all of these different landing pages, you will start ranking organically quite high for all of these different landing pages. And that is actually one of the main contributors to the growth of the Unicorn Factory. It's just simply the fact that I've got all of these different category pages and skill pages and location pages that ultimately make it easier for potential searchers to find what they're looking for. Now, instead of you having to manually go through the process of creating every single one of these pages, you can actually use one of Webflow's inbuilt features that is an absolute game changer called the Webflow CMS. Now, the way that the Webflow CMS works is that you essentially create an internal database in Webflow where you can then specify unique fields similar to what you do inside of Airtable. And you can then populate your database with different items. So in this case, design, marketing, web development, and so on. And then instead of having to create individual pages for each of these records, you can actually just create a single template page and then map the values from your CMS to that page. And so if we were to switch from the design page to the marketing page, you'll see that the actual page is the exact same. It just contains different content. So it's got a different heading, it's got a different text, it's got, again, it filters out only freelancers who specialize in marketing. And that is a really great way for you to very quickly spin up hundreds of these specific landing pages. Now, if we go and have a look at the Unicorns Factory specific page, I have these landing pages for absolutely anything. But besides creating, category or location specific landing pages, you can also create templates for your seller pages. So if, for example, we go and have a look at Hayden's profile, you can see that he has his own unique bio. He's got, his own specialty, he's got, his own unique case studies. And ultimately, the reason why you might want to create that is because if you want to allow your customers to contact your sellers directly through your directory, it will be a lot easier to just give them all the information that they need. And ultimately, these seller landing pages can then act as a way for you to get more clients to sign up. Okay, so the question now becomes, well, okay, do I need to create a new item manually every single time I want to create a new category page? And the answer is no. You can use a very similar method to what we did when we set up the form submission to automatically create these pages. So the first step is to obviously design your template page, to create your CMS collection, and to add all of the dynamic fields that you may need to populate on that page. And as soon as that is done, you want to now again use Airtable to create a table for your categories. So in this case, you might want to create a unique page title like hire the best designers, or a custom page description. Now you can do some pretty fancy things with this, but ultimately what you want to do is just create whatever categories you want, and then as soon as you are ready to send it to Webflow, all you need to do is just switch it to live, and then once again trigger a workflow inside of make.com that automatically creates that CMS item inside of Webflow. Now, the way that you can create these CMS items inside of Webflow is by using make.com to set up a workflow. And so without diving too much into the weeds, the way it works is that as soon as you change the status inside of Airtable, it triggers a workflow that then retrieves the record that you just updated, and then you map all of the values from your Airtable record to the Webflow CMS, and so you can then populate it with things like the page title and so on. And so depending on the kind of use cases that you're solving for, you might want to create a step where it creates a CMS item, or if it already exists, just updates the CMS item. But that is ultimately what you would do in order to automate the process for creating all of these unique landing pages. Now, as soon as you've got all of that up and running, you are pretty much in business. Then your focus should just be to attract more clients to your site and to connect them with as many buyers as possible. You can also set up a few little workflows for connecting buyers and sellers to each other, by maybe making email introductions or whatever it may be. And as soon as you get to the stage where you are processing a lot more connections, you'll be ready to move on to take it to the next level, and that is where we're going to look into the next tools. But before we do, I want to quickly tell you about a free workshop that I've launched on my site that you should check out if you have found this video interesting. My workshop is all about how to build marketplaces with no-code tools. So if you are thinking about building a marketplace but you're not quite sure where to start, this video will give you the absolute rundown of how it all works. And I'm going to be taking you through my 4-step process for getting absolute beginners from having an idea to building their own scalable marketplace that they are in control of. We'll go over things like how to identify your niche, how to validate your marketplace idea, how to build your MVP, and also how to scale beyond the MVP. So if that's you, head on over to the website. I'll leave a link in the description down below. It's free to join, and you will basically get the bird's eye view of everything that you need to know in order to get started. With that being said, let's move on to the next tool that I'd recommend, which is Glide. Now, when I started the Unicorn Factory in New Zealand, those first 3 tools that I just showed you were pretty much all I needed for the first year. But eventually I ran into a situation where it was getting a little bit time consuming to basically help clients and freelancers manage their accounts. So what I mean by that is when a freelancer would message me and basically tell me that they wanted to update their profile image or change their bio or, apply for a job, it would just start taking a lot of time. So ultimately what you want to do is you want to create tools that allow you to onboard your buyers and sellers effectively, plus allow them to manage their account themselves without you actually having to manually do anything. And the tool that I use in order to make that happen is Glide. Now, here's a little bit of a preview of my Glide portal for freelancers. And in here, they can see any inquiries that they receive, any jobs that they can apply for on the job board. So, if a job is a good fit for them, they can just jump in here and apply. Another thing that it gets used for is, the ability to update their profile. So if they want to change their profile picture or change the availability, they can just add all of that in here. And then there are a whole bunch of additional features. Now, the reason why this particular tool is so powerful is because having implemented this meant that freelancers were now able to take care of their entire account by themselves without me having to manually intervene. Now, Glide is particularly good for a few reasons. First of all, it's kind of an all-in-one tool. So instead of having to use Webflow, Airtable, and Make to set up a front end and a database and automation, Glide actually just does it all in one, which means that you can move a lot faster. Now, to quickly preemptively answer the question why we use Webflow, Airtable, and Make.com instead of just using a tool that does all of it, the answer is that typically when you are using all-in-one tools, you'll run into a situation where those tools are good at kind of a lot of different things, but not particularly great at one particular thing. And in the case of Webflow, the SEO benefits that I get from Webflow is just something that Glide does not create for me. The nice visual ease of use of Airtable is not quite the same with the data editor, and the automations that you can set up inside of Glide are mostly focused on the internal app features. So ultimately you still need to use all of the different tools together, but when it comes to quickly spinning up nice looking portals that allow your users to basically manage their accounts, then there's really second to none. And so I highly recommend Glide, but I would also keep in mind that this is a feature that you don't need to add until you feel like you've truly found product market fit. Now, the last core tool that I want to mention is Stripe. Now, there's not that much I can show you with Stripe simply because it is just pretty straightforward for what it does, but it basically manages all of my payments. Now, there are a few things that I love about Stripe. I'm going to start off with the obvious one, which is when you are managing people's credit cards, you need to have a certain level of security. You don't want to be building out your own payment systems. It's trouble in the making. So what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you're using a tool that has been tried and tested. And when it comes to payments, there is just simply nothing better than Stripe. Now, another thing that is particularly good about Stripe is the use cases that they solve for. So if you want to build a marketplace that just sells one-off products, Stripe has you covered. If you want to do subscription, Stripe has you covered. If you want to clip the ticket like you see with a lot of marketplace businesses, where you take a cut of the transaction, Stripe has a product called Stripe Connect that allows you to implement all of that. And if you want to do a usage-based business model, selling credits, that type of stuff, then once again, Stripe is the tool that you want to use. Now, the beautiful thing about Stripe is you can integrate it very nicely into whatever tools you're using. So I integrate it into my Glide portal, but you can also kind of integrate it straight into your Webflow project as well, if that is what you want to do. They've got a whole bunch of very friendly no-code solutions that you can pretty much start implementing from day one. But if you want to build more complex things, they also have very beautiful API documentation that makes setting up your payment system easy and straightforward. Now, these are the 5 core tools that I would consider essential to the Unicorn Factory at the moment. Now, obviously, I still use a whole bunch of other tools as well, and I'm actually going to give 2 honorable shout outs to some tools that I completely love. And whilst they are not essential to the operation of the Unicorn Factory, I do use them all the time and they save me heaps of time and money, so they'll deserve a mention. But I do want you to remember that if you are just getting started, learning how all these tools work from day one is going to be very difficult. So what I recommend doing is to start off by keeping it simple and just going ahead and building a simple landing page for your marketplace. That is how I started the Unicorn Factory. That is kind of how I started discovering all of the different no-code tools and how they work. And taking one step forward is better than planning 100 steps forward and never taking one. So ultimately, the first thing that I'd focus on is just creating a landing page for your marketplace. And if you do end up doing it, please reach out to me, just head over to my website and just email me, and I'd love to see what you're working on. And you never know, if I like your landing page, I might reply and give you some tips. With that being said, I want to quickly jump into 2 more tools that deserve the honorable shout out, and the first one is Reloom. Now, I kind of showed how Reloom works before at the start when we went over the Webflow stuff, but it is essentially a component library that will speed up the process for you building out your different pages in your projects. Now, before Reloom came along, it was actually kind of time consuming building out different sections inside of your Webflow project, and especially if you were brand new to building websites, that could be a little bit of a learning curve that you needed to overcome. However, ever since Reloom has come along, the process of at least getting the structure of your site right has completely transformed. So all you need to do is just jump through the entire collection library, have a look at the sections that you like, copy it, paste it into Webflow, and before you know it, you are in business. They also have a really neat tool called the Reloom AI site builder that I recommend checking out, that allows you to basically add a prompt to their site. So let's take, for example, a marketplace for dog trainers. And what the AI site building tool will do for you is it will go ahead and it will create a sitemap for your entire site. And so you can see here, it will basically say, okay, this is your homepage. Here are the sections that you're going to need. Then you can also, create the pages for all the other pages that they recommend. So for example, an About Us page, a blog page, the trainers page, maybe a products page, whatever it is that you want. And then what it does is it actually then creates the wireframes for you that you can then copy and paste directly into Webflow. Now, please, for the love of it all, you don't need to overcomplicate it by going ahead and just copy and pasting everything over immediately. I would still just recommend starting off with a landing page. But if you want to get your landing page up and running a little faster, you want to get that contact page up and running a little bit faster, then this is a tool that will absolutely speed up the process for getting your site live. Okay, that was Reloom. Now onto the second one, which is OpenAI. Now, you didn't think we're going to be making it throughout the entire video without me mentioning an AI tool. Well, I am. Now, look, I'm not going to dive into some unrealistic use cases of AI in this video, but I do use OpenAI a lot, and I specifically use the make.com integration, and I use it quite heavily in Glide. For example, in Glide, I used it to create an AI job listing tool for clients where it automatically creates a high quality job listing that I could then use to promote it to different freelancers on the site. But there are a whole bunch of different use cases. If you are, for example, creating your programmatic landing pages and you want to create all of the different content for your landing pages, then you can use an integration like this along with a prompt to then quickly go ahead and create the outline for the different page titles that you'll have, your meta description, all those types of things. And ever since I've integrated OpenAI and the GPT models into my workflows, the quality of content on the site has gone up big time. So again, nothing you need to worry about on day one, but just something to look forward to in the future, because as soon as you start diving into how all of these tools work, it's really crazy what you can do with these tools these days, especially if you come from a non-coding background. With all of that being said, we are going to wrap this video up here. If you found it useful, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, tell me that you loved it. It means the world to me. With all of that being said, thanks so much for watching the entire video, and I'll see you back here for the next one.